Hi, Majabin.
Hi, Isha. How are you?
There is a lot of disturbance at your end.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you, but there is some noise behind you.
Really?
Okay. So, to answer your question, what you have asked earlier in the morning, you can see the Q&A box, right?
Yeah.
So we will, through message, we will promote all the participants to put in their questions during the event, during the webinar in the Q&A box only. And whoever is the host can actually disable the chat for participants. So participants are not able to use the chat box because we don't want two places where questions are, coming in. So there is an option in the chat box. I think the host can do it. Where you can just limit the attendees can chat with no one and panelists can chat with everyone.
Okay. Only host can do that.
I think I can also do that. I have changed the settings. If you can see, just open the settings and see if it's same for everyone. So then we can send messages to the attendees saying that please put your questions in the Q&A box and all those things, but they are not able to say, like whatever they need to add can add in the Q&A box only. So you will have to type this message out and send once the presentations begin that, question and answers will be posted in the Q&A box. So you can keep posting and we can also ask the presenters.
Now I get your point, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So yeah, that's the idea. And will there be someone at your end who will be copy pasting the questions? Because I think Q&A box chat.
Radia will do that.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah, let me add her. As co-host, I can also add people as co-hosts, right?
You can promote people to panelist. Radia is already there in the attendees.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, promote.
Yeah.
Last time, our IT did all these things, so.
It's fine. It's very easy. You do it once or twice and then you will just. Emily is also here, so let's add her.
Yeah.
Mehjabin, you will be sharing the screen. Who will be sharing the screen?
Sunita will share her presentation. Yeah.
Okay. And when others will also present, she will be.
She will be.
Okay, she'll have the control.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you see the presentation? I hope there's no audio, because if there is an audio, then we'll have to make those settings as well.
I can confirm there's no audio. Yeah.
Hi, Emily. How are you?
Hi, I'm well, thank you. How are you all?
All well. You're saying there's no audio, right?
No audio, no. And yes, Anita will do the controls for everyone.
Perfect. So Emily, you will also be presenting some section?
Yeah. So I think there's around 5 or 6 of us presenting different sections that we're mostly involved in.
Turn on your camera? Your audio is fine. Can you just turn on your camera? Because while presenting, we request you, and while answering the questions, we request all the presenters to turn on their camera. So, I mean, it looks more interactive.
Of course. So at the moment, my camera, I'm not able to start my camera. So if you could just enable.
Yeah. So Majabin, you'll have to make all the presenters as co-host. Otherwise, they'll not be able to present or share their video.
Yeah. That I'm doing.
I am a co-host, but I am not able to do that. So I think the host will have to do it.
Why you are not able to do that?
I don't know. For me, the option is not coming to.
Okay, let me check with him.
Yeah. And Majbin, when we start, I think you can have the banner as a background slide until, you know, Purnima starts.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
That
I will do. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be, I think we should give like 30-40 seconds for people to join in once we start the webinar.
Yeah.
We are in the practice session now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, can you add panelists, Esha?
Purnima is asking, there is no panelist link.
Okay, let me send her. This is the same link, he said. I mean, let me send the link.
So generally what we do, Majbin, is for all the speakers, we create a panelist link so they don't have to register and get into. So from the next webinar, maybe we can do that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me know. I mean, I asked him, but he didn't answer.
No worries. I think, yeah, you and I can talk about it.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Majbin, can you make Purnima and Sunita and Helen the co-hosts so they are able to turn on the video and able to share the screen if they want?
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Sunita. Hi, Purnima. Hi, Helen.
Hi. Can you guys see and hear?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, your video is also perfect, Helen. Sunita, can we see you? Oh, that's perfect. Can you unmute yourself?
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have to be in the LSHTM library. Yeah.
I hear that you will be sharing the screen, right, Sunita, from your end?
Yeah, I'll be sharing my screen. Maybe I'll wear a nice shawl so no one knows I'm wearing a sweatshirt.
That is a clever trick to have up your sleeve, actually. I'm going to remember that.
I'm always in this red sweatshirt at home.
Yeah, a scarf is always a good thing.
Yeah. Let me share and see if everything is.
Yeah, please do that.
Oh, if you can stop sharing your screen.
Najabin, can you stop sharing?
Could you text Hassan? I wrote to him, but I just don't know where he is. Yeah.
Yeah, I can. I just messaged you to say I can fill in if there's an issue.
Yeah. Is this okay? Yeah. Let me just do the slides share. Everything's
yeah. This is fine.
Yeah.
And you will be controlling the screen for all the other speakers as well, right?
That's right. Yes. Yeah. So I'll stop sharing now.
Yeah.
And you can put on your slide.
Majbin, can you just pull up the agenda quickly and we can go through the run of the event so everybody's on the same page? And just one request that while you are presenting, whoever is presenting, kindly keep your camera on to make it look more interactive. And especially during the Q&A session, request all of you
of the trial that they undertook for efforts that are underway to link agriculture and nutrition issues in the context of India. I've been aware of the trial for several years now. Have been hearing about it in particular from Sunita, but also several others among you. I don't think we've ever hosted this group or anything like this for a seminar like this before. I don't want to take too much time up from from the seminar itself, but I would like to take a moment to introduce the entire team of speakers. To me, the trial in particular is not just an example of research addressing a set of really important topics, but I think what we'll see through the presentation is that this trial is also a fantastic example of how to do research in a way that is truly collaborative across a wide range of research and implementation partners who have come together to co-design, implement, and rigorously evaluate a critical set of interventions with huge applicability for rural populations across South Asia. So without further ado, let me introduce the speakers. There are several of them. They're going to play quite a tag team and will speak for about 40 minutes as soon as I'm done with introducing them. So first we have Sunita Kadiala, who's a professor of global nutrition at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Sunita needs no introduction in the world of agriculture, food systems, and nutrition. She co-directs the Agriculture, Nutrition, and Health Academy, not economy, and is PI of the UPAVAN trial. We're joined by Ronali Pradhan. Welcome, Ronali, who's the regional head at Digital Green. Digital Green brought the video-based participatory agricultural extension angle or elements of the intervention, and Ronali led the implementation team of the trial. Suchitra Rath, who is the program lead at AICCHUT, is also here with us, and her expertise is on designing community-based interventions, particularly using participatory learning and action. Suchitra and the AICCHUT team led the participatory learning action arm of this trial. We also have Shidnath Pradhan, who led Varat's community-based programs and processes in the district where the trial was undertaken in Keonjhar. And they led the actual implementation of the UPAVAN activities on the ground. We also have Helen Harris Fry, who's an assistant professor at LSHTM. She's a nutritionist with an interest in gender equity and household behavior. And a lot of her research is focused on community-based approaches to improve nutrition. We have also Satya Mohanty, who is the founder and director of Decor Consulting. They led the data collection and other related aspects of the trial. And then we have Hassan Parasat Bigdoli, who's an assistant professor of health economics at the Institute for Global Health at UCL. Hassan led the economic evaluation. And last but not least, we have Emily Fivian, who's a research assistant at LSHTM. And she worked on the end-line evaluation and led the UPAVAN study. Wow, what an incredible team. Thank you all so much for really pulling the power of your collective together to deliver this seminar for us. Let me hand it over to you all. So over to you, I guess, Sunita, you're managing your slides. And just a quick note, just before you kick off, we encourage participants to share any questions they have for the team as the seminar unfolds using the Q&A box. They will keep an eye on it and try to answer at least some of them, as we go along. Over to you, Sunita and team.
Thank you all for that. Thank you, Purnima, for that kind introduction. And thank you for the CGIAR TAFSSA team for inviting us to be presenting this work today. It's indeed very special for us, and to be presenting to you as the audience, as leaders also in this agriculture, nutrition, food systems for nutrition and health space globally. So thank you for that on behalf of the entire team who is here and also who is not here today. So before I proceed further into the trial itself, I just want to give a sneak peek of the work preceding the trial. Worldwide, there's been a lot of literature on how agricultural extension can be inequitable and is often untimely and reaches mostly the better of male farmers. So Digital Green, therefore, worked with the participatory video-driven agricultural extension through women's self-help groups, and their work had shown that it improves agricultural extension through this methodology, which Ronali will talk a little bit more about later, improves relevance, timeliness, and inclusivity of these participatory of agricultural extension. Then the question was, can this be adapted? Can this platform and this technology be adapted to improve maternal and child nutrition outcomes and not just agricultural outcomes? And that's where the whole stream of partners, new partners, came into being. I was at IFPRI at that time, where you will see IFPRI being a partner on this study. And what we did there was to adapt this platform for nutrition-specific interventions and test the feasibility. And to our we found that this intervention, this integration is feasible, but more participatory components are needed for changes in nutrition outcomes. Then I called Audrey Prost and Nirmala Nair and others from EGJUT and UCL to look at what participatory components can be incorporated into that. And we incorporated or integrated PLA, Participatory Learning and Action, into this. And once again, we found this to be a feasible and promising approach that led to UPAVAN trial, which once the trial was funded, we also had a host of formative work, which Ronali and Helen also will talk about in designing this intervention more specifically. Here is a large team of people who were central to the conduct of the trial. Some of them were here. JSI Spring colleagues are not here. They're in the East Coast, and you know that it's an ungodly hour for them at this time. All the people in Green will be presenting here today, and we'll try our best to be efficient in playing this tag team. And I think we'll be okay with that. And it was funded by FCDO, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And fortunately for us, USAID also complemented some of the funding through the Spring program. So UPAVAN in a nutshell is a participatory video-driven agricultural extension approach delivered through women's self-help groups in Odisha. I don't think this audience needs much more clarification on women's self-help groups are. If you need, just let us know in the chat and someone will answer that. We took that approach, basic approach, and we made this more nutrition sensitive and more participatory. It's a 4-arm cluster randomized controlled trial and our primary outcomes we were interested in was primary and secondary outcomes we were interested in was maternal and child diet quality, as well as child wasting and maternal BMI. We conducted a mixed methods process evaluation, which Audrey Prost and team led from UCL, and also economic evaluation with Hassan and team from UCL led that aspect as well. So UPAVAN had 4 arms, as I just said. Arm 1 is the arm 0 here is the control group, which is it received the standard agriculture, life as it exists kind of a process. And arm 1 is an agri arm, where women self-help groups received nutrition sensitive agricultural videos twice per month delivered through women self-help groups. And arm 2 received NSA videos, nutrition sensitive agriculture videos, and also nutrition specific videos once per month. And arm 3 received NSA videos once per month and participated in a PLA cycle action meetings or derived nutrition specific videos in this arm. All of these arms received follow-up visits from our UPAVAN frontline workers after each video dissemination and facilitated discussion or a PLA meeting. And we limited that to not all the women in the self-help group, but to the women who are pregnant and mothers of children under 2 years of age. All the arms, including the control arm, received training. All the government frontline workers in all the arms received training on IVCF, infant and young child feeding practices, some basic training in terms of health system strengthening and so on. So that means that the first arm received 100% of videos on nutrition-sensitive agriculture. The second arm received 50% of the videos that the first arm received on nutrition-sensitive agriculture, and 50% on nutrition-specific behaviors. And arm 3 received 50% of the NSA videos, and 50% of the meetings were on PLA meetings or PLA-driven videos. Now I invite Ronali, Suchitra, and Helen to talk about the intervention design. Ronali, on to you.
You're on mute.
Ronali.
Okay, I have to unmute, sorry. Thank you so much, Smita. I'm Ronali from Digital Green. In Digital Green, we use digital tools to amplify and disseminate new technologies and best practices for the benefits of the women and women farmers. So here in this UPAVAN project, the video-enabled approach started with formative research to understand the context, the cultural barriers, gaps, challenges, enabling mechanisms, and hindering factors, because it is very important to understand them before starting any project. And we also try to understand the associated food taboos, because it was something which tried to influence the nutrition behaviors. So it's also helped us mobilizing the community. Based on the findings from the formative research, we prepared a video calendar or content calendar, as you can say. So a set of frontline workers were trained on how to produce these videos, and we facilitated them to produce the videos from time to time based on seasonality, based on community requirement. These videos were sequenced, and the videos were based on technically approved storyboard by the knowledge partners, and the community and the frontline workers became the actors in the videos, and they spoke the local dialect. So it can build a strong peer connect among all the viewers, which could trigger adoption among the viewers. And there was special emphasis on how to disseminate these videos using a special facilitated mediation technique. The videos were shown to all the women groups in all the 3 arms using battery operated pico projectors, because some of the villages were very remote and tribal village and network connection was very poor. And for this set of trained workers, we also conducted a training on how to disseminate these videos. And during dissemination, these women were encouraged to ask questions, participate, have discussion, and adapt the behaviors highlighted in the videos. And this was followed by home visits to all the 1,000-day women in all the 3 arms. Their house, we conducted this visit to their house to reinforce messages and address any challenges that they might be facing while adopting these messages. Those are disseminated in the videos. We also laid strong emphasis on feedback mechanism. Feedback was taken from the community on the contents or messages disseminated, and those are improvised based on the feedback received. So we took maximum effort to intensive effort to complete the feedback loop and respond to the community with desired modification and changes.
Suchitra, please unmute.
Yeah. Thanks, Sunita. So about the PLA approach. So in UPAVAN, the PLA, actually the PLA meeting cycle, it has 4 phases, and each of these phases has several related meetings. So what we did in UPAVAN in the PLA arm, let me quickly take you through what happened in each of the 4 phases. So in the first phase, which is about identifying and prioritizing problem, in a series of 6 meetings, the members played a picture card game to identify the problems, and through a 6 pebbles game, they chose the priority problems. In the second phase, which was about 5 meetings, the members explored the cause and effect linkages of the prioritized problems through the process of storytelling that was developed by the UPAVAN frontline workers using local themes. And basically, these stories illustrated how health, nutrition, and hygiene problems are linked to the underlying household or community level and health services related issues. They discussed the underlying causes and solutions and decided which of them they want to address and how. After the communities have prioritized feasible and doable strategies, they took responsibilities for each of the strategies. They decided indicators to measure the progress and planned a wider dissemination to share the strategies they have prioritized with other community members and also enlist support of other stakeholders during the process of implementation. In the third phase of the cycle, the community members, they implemented the strategies, as well as they discussed about the strategies which were effective, and this was done through discussing the strategies through form of videos. Actually, the third and was the longest phase, and it was about 16 meetings. The members implemented and reviewed the strategies they had decided upon. During this time, the UPAVAN frontline workers also disseminated videos on some common positive strategies for them to try at home, like enhancing the density and diversity of complementary foods, using local products, practicing responsive feeding, or improving maternal and child undernutrition. So videos also included issues on entitlements and ways of integrating agriculture with nutrition, and behaviors which highlighted both individual and community level practices, and that could have an impact on maternal, infant, and young child nutrition indicators. The content of the videos in the phase 3 or the implementing the strategies phase related to the problems that were commonly prioritized by the groups, and also integrated emerging issues and barriers or enablers to behavior change that arose from the strategy planning discussions. At the end of the third phase, the PLA group members of neighboring villages got together and organized a larger meeting of all stakeholders to disseminate about their learning during the 3 phases, that throughout the meetings, whatever they have discussed, they disseminated in a larger group. And coming to the fourth phase, in the fourth and final phase, which was of 2 meetings, the members discussed the progress of their strategies and shared their achievements, and also discussed the difficulties encountered during the process of implementation of strategies. The participants did a self-evaluation of basically what they have done well, where they could have done better. So over to you, Ronali.
Please, Ronali, please unmute.
Thank you so much, Suchitra. So this is the theory of change for this RCT. We developed this to have a common understanding among all the partners involved in this project. So if I highlight the key impact pathways for this project are like, we had two set of impact pathways. One is nutrition sensitive agriculture practices, and another is nutrition specific practices. Under nutrition sensitive agricultural practices, we focused on produce food. I mean, mother and children to consume nutrient-rich food, and for them, maybe they'll have to grow that. Then earn income, like the surplus can be sold in the market, and the expenses, the expenses of other dietary or food items can be made from that income from that food. And then reduce workload. Pregnant and lactating women need to conserve energy and in order to take care of themselves and their babies. So this is also an important pathways. And making joint decision at the family level, generally joint decision taking is quite skewed. So we promoted practices like where women also can participate in decisions such as which are the crops to be grown in the backyard, because the focus was on cultivating nutrient rich food, and how to share the workload during pregnancy and lactation, and how to use the income in properly and judiciously so that health, diet and nutrition can also be addressed through that income. These are the 4 nutrition sensitive agriculture pathways. And coming to nutrition specific practices, like we focused on maternal adequate diet. Like there should be improved dietary quantity and quality during pregnancy, and pregnant women and women with a child having more than 2 years of age. And rest during pregnancy and lactation is quite important, as we all know. And simultaneously focusing on child adequate diet, because this is also another important aspect of nutrition specific practices, starting from exclusive breastfeeding, introducing complementary feeding practices at 6 months of age, feeding age appropriate complementary feeding, and also feeding and care for a sick child. Like during sickness also, we need to take care of their diet, the diet of the child. And through all these, we aim to reach that improved dietary quality and nutrition status of children and mothers. And to arrive at, we try to triangulate with global and local evidences, formative research outcomes, the feasibility, like which are the practices feasible in the local agroecological situation, and what the supply side of it, and is there a potential uptake for that practices, because we cannot promote a practice which is not preferred, which is not already in practice or not preferred by the local community. So that factor was also taken into consideration, and local experience also was a vital parameter in this case.
Helen, please unmute. Yeah.
So now that we had prioritized the key pathways that we wanted to promote within the theory of change, we had to come up with a calendar of videos to work with and disseminate in the community. And so coming from these kind of broad buckets of pathways to specific practices and specific video content was really quite a challenge. So just to illustrate how this can, the different multitude of things that we could include in a video can really exponentially grow. If you look at the first pathway, which is about producing nutrient-rich foods to consume, we could promote a bunch of different types of crops that are nutrient-rich, or specific practices like planning a kitchen garden or using composting. And let's say we've decided that Indian spinach is one of the crops that we want to promote out of this list of options, then we need to choose what specific practice within growing spinach we really want to address. Do we want to improve the spacing of the plants to maximize yields? Or is it about application of compost, or recommending use of wastewater runoff to overcome water scarcity? So how do we choose exactly what to focus on? First of all, we used a seasonal calendar, the formative research that Renali has mentioned, and we also integrated our local expertise. And then when we thought we had a set of practices and a calendar of video content, we had to map that back against each of the impact pathways to make sure that we were balanced and not just focusing on one of the pathways all of the time. Like the top one was a bit too tempting to focus on all the time. And we also wanted to make sure that the package of behaviors that we were promoting was not overwhelmingly diverse. Instead, we wanted to have a core set of key behaviors and map that progress using the trans-theoretical model of behavior change. And that's where really behavioral theory was particularly important in our trial. So what we used was the trans-theoretical model that takes participants on a collective journey of pre-contemplation about a practice, then contemplating it, preparing to adopt a practice, acting on it, and then maintaining that behavior. And termination means sort of the next stage of encouraging that practice amongst others in the community. And so that's exactly what we tried to do with a set of behaviors, was to take it on a shared journey through that trans-theoretical model. And then fundamental to all of this was continual integration of community feedback. What did they like? What didn't they like? And what should we focus on next?
Shibabu, please unmute.
Welcome to all. Now I am discussing on 4 pillars of intervention component. One is women groups with videos. The implementation started with community launching events in the villages where all the stakeholders participate and the details concept was shared. as video dissemination and PLA activities conducted engaging the women self-help groups. We organize the women in all the project villages into the self-help group where there was no SHG or reorganize and reactivate the defunct SHG. Our effort was to include all the women in every villages and more especially the 1,000 mothers. Video on nutrition sensitive agriculture and nutrition specific video we are disseminated and discussion in the SHG group. The dissemination group we are formed with member from 2 SHG and they see one video every fortnight, 5 to 6 dissemination group created for every 1,000 population. The second component is follow-up visit. Regular follow-up visit undertaken to each and every 1,000 mothers after the dissemination and PLA meeting. And the purpose was to reinforce the message and encourage to adopt the promoted behaviors and build rapport with the families. During the visit, the women we are also motivated to avail the relevant government program and scheme during different stages of 1,000 days. And third is participatory learning and action. PLA was integrated in 1 hour. We are target community meeting. We are organized in open space and 2 to 3 such meeting in every 1,000 population. The cycle of community meeting we are followed as per the PLA process, which discussed by Suchitra ma'am. Fourth is training of frontline worker. The training of government frontline worker created greater opportunity for us and for the workers. It made the more acquaintance with the government frontline of the line department, which create an easy to access for the 1,000 mothers to avail the opportunity created by the government. This was done in all the areas. Thanks, ma'am. Next.
Satya, please unmute.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Sunita. Good afternoon and good morning to all. Let me quickly give you an overview on UPAVAN impact evaluation. Yeah, you go to the next slide.
Sorry.
Yeah, UPAVAN impact, like UPAVAN trial was conducted in 4 blocks of Punjab district. In yeah.
Sorry, I don't know what happened. Excuse me. I think my screen moved. Sorry, Satya.
Yes, no.
Yes, sorry.
Yes. UPAVAN trial was actually conducted in 4 blocks of Punjab district in Odisha state of India. We basically applied cluster randomized controlled trial design. Altogether, we covered around 148 clusters, which were randomly allocated to 4 arms, including the control arm. Per arm, around 37 clusters we covered. We stratified these clusters, allocation of these clusters by distance to the nearest town and by low, medium, and high proportion of scheduled tribe or scheduled caste households. Although the intervention targeted all women in the community, but the impact evaluation specifically, the participants were pregnant women, children below 2 years and their mothers, and households. These are some of the primary and secondary outcomes measured under the trial. The primary outcomes were basically child minimum dietary diversity and maternal underweight. The secondary outcomes were maternal minimum dietary diversity and child wasting. Apart from these primary and secondary outcomes, we also covered other outcomes like value of agricultural production, household expenditure. We also measured empowerment related variables, minimum acceptable diet, hemoglobin, and mid-arm circumference. In order to measure these outcomes, we conducted repeat cross-sectional surveys, both at baseline as well as endline. The baseline survey was conducted from November 2016 to January 2017, and exactly after 32 months of intervention, we conducted the endline survey. That was actually from November 2019 to January 2020. In fact, the baseline and the endline survey was carried out in the same time period in a year. For the analysis, we used the intention to treat approach. We compared the outcomes at endline between the trial arms. We compared, in fact, each of the 3 intervention arms with the control arm. The analysis, we used appropriate generalized estimating equations for each outcome to account for clustering. We adjusted the baseline measures for each outcome, and also we adjusted the stratification factors. Apart from the quantitative impact evaluation, we also conducted mixed method process evaluation and cost consequence economic evaluation of the UPAVAN trial. Let me quickly take you through the results that we got from the UPAVAN trial. For the primary outcomes, we could see actually significant change in the child minimum dietary diversity, particularly in the agri-nude and agri-nude plus PLA arm by 19% and 27% respectively. But there was no change. Actually, we could see the maternal BMI across all the three arms. For the secondary outcomes, like the primary, so we could see actually significant improvement in the maternal minimum dietary diversity, particularly in agri arm by 21% and agri-nude plus PLA arm by 30%. In the agri-nude arm, the improvement was 16%. It was relatively marginal as compared to the other two arms. But we could not see actually much change in case of child wasting across the three arms. Apart from these primary and secondary outcomes, so we also see improvement in the child minimum acceptable diet, particularly in agri-nude and agri-nude plus PLA arm. We have also seen changes. We could also see changes in women decision making in agricultural health and net value of agricultural production only in agriculture arm. Apart from these indicators, we could not see actually much changes in other indicators covered under the trial. Thank you. Yeah. Over to Helen.
Helen. Thank you. So how did the intervention work? We conducted a process evaluation to try and understand this. Our process evaluation had three key aims. The first was to assess the fidelity of the intervention's implementation, ensuring that the intervention was implemented as planned. Secondly, was to clarify mechanisms behind the intervention's effects. And third, to identify any contextual factors associated with variations in the outcomes that might have enabled or inhibited change. This was guided by our theory of change, whereby we mapped out each component of the theory of change and tried to track changes and identify which components of that theory of change had been activated. We then sought to explain any unexpected processes that could also explain the effects. We used a range of different data sources to complete our process evaluation. Primarily, we used qualitative data collection over two phases from 2018 and in 2019. That involved 17 focus group discussions with SHGs and focus group discussions with the UPAVAN frontline workers, as well as family case studies, so individual interviews with a total of 91 participants and their family members. We also used monitoring data, the endline survey, and annual reports and review notes. So how did the fidelity look? Well, the fidelity of the intervention was very high. Almost all of the events went ahead as planned in all three of the arms. And the quality of the video disseminations were rated as high across all intervention, all meetings. The exposure to the interventions was also quite high. So around half of participants were active self-help group members. And among the intervention arms, around half of participants attended an UPAVAN event, whether it was a video dissemination or PLA meeting in the last 6 months. So how did we find it worked? Well, first of all, we found that the meetings were really well liked. Participants enjoyed attending, learning, meeting other people, learning to speak up, although some felt that the content was a bit less relevant to them. And this really related to the structural constraints that households face that we weren't able to address in the intervention directly, such as ownership of land, water, or time constraints. We also found that family dynamics were very important. They were a constraint for some, an enabler for others. We found that although not all families were able to adopt all of the practices promoted, many families adopted some depending on their situation and what appealed to them the most and was most feasible and practical for them. And that really highlights the importance of having a menu of options that participants can pick from and identify as relevant for their own individual contexts.
Hassan, please unmute.
Hi,
yeah.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Here, I'll briefly present a summary result of economic evaluation. We done economic evaluation from a societal perspective, basically including program provider, cost to health system, and also the patients, the users that participated in the intervention. But the result I'm presenting here is the program provider perspective. And detail of the societal perspective you can see in the paper. I will post it on the chat. Overall, all UPAVAN intervention costed around $1 million, and majority of this cost was related to staff, 60% as you can see, and the rest was travel and overhead costs. In terms of component, apart from intervention, a specific component like nutrition, a specific activity or nutrition sensitive activity, monitoring and quality assurance was the second major components. Next slide. And in terms of, you can see here the detail of the intervention in each arm that is range from 270,000 to 380,000 for each arm and different components. And each overall, on average, each arm covered around 4,500 the target population who were pregnant women and mother of children under two years old. And using this data and cost data, we estimated the unit cost or cost efficiency ratio which range from $18 to $25. And again, using the outcome data that's in terms of dietary diversity and the cost of intervention, we estimated cost effectiveness ratio, cost outcome. And as you can see from the table, the PLA arm was the most cost effective among the arms, and with using the dietary diversity outcome. And overall, comparing this result, UPAVAN result, with few available NSA intervention, which mostly implemented in sub-Saharan Africa, there are comparable results in terms of cost efficiency ratio and also cost effectiveness result. Thank you.
So taking all this together, we just have me and Emily now, we're almost there. We find that UPAVAN interventions improved maternal and child dietary diversity, but not maternal BMI and wasting, and we can discuss why might that be during Q&A if you're interested. Largest effect sizes for dietary diversity were found in arm 3, which is the PLA arm, and we think it could be because there is more diversity of community members and community outreach that was involved in this arm, and the methods are based on active learning, and there is a much more concerted effort in terms of enabling collective strategies for action as well. So our UPAVAN trial has added to the global evidence on how enhancing nutrition sensitivity and participatory component of agriculture interventions can improve diet quality. We think that based on our process evaluation, we think that impacts could be further enhanced by strengthening the family-centric approaches, although we have various elements of it, which also we are happy to discuss later. We do think that there is room for that. As Hassan just mentioned, they're cost effective, these kinds of interventions, and are also cost efficient as compared to other similar NSA interventions. Where I think in UPAVAN, we have paid a very close attention, as Helen has mentioned, on intervention development principles, behavior change theory, and delivery, especially focusing on women's capacity strengthening, but more importantly, problem solving skills. And also creating conditions where they can actually solve problems. Strong community feedback loops, as all the team mentioned in various parts, helped maintain helped us stay true to the trial design while ensuring that, that we are constantly taking community feedback, and it remained participatory, demand-driven, and relevant. Inclusive partnerships at all levels was at the heart of UPAVAN. But then when the trial ended, we just finished our process of our evaluation and line survey, and then COVID hit. So I invite Emily to present the final set of slides on what we did, what happened after the UPAVAN trial ended. Emily, could you unmute?
Sure, thank you, Sunita. So beyond the need to test mobile or digital approaches to nutrition and health programs during the COVID-19 enforced restrictions, which came about very shortly after completion of the UPAVAN trial, mobile approaches also do offer opportunities to overcome several barriers that are related to in-person approaches. And some of these were highlighted in the UPAVAN process evaluation, such as women's time constraints and reluctance to attend group meetings when heavily pregnant. Additionally, mobile approaches may offer potential for including whole families, which could improve adoption of behaviours. Next slide, please. Therefore, so we piloted a mobile adapted UPAVAN intervention, UPAVAN. So UPAVAN included 6 months of weekly disseminations of shortened NSA and nutrition-specific UPAVAN videos via WhatsApp groups, and content was also scripted and available as audio via an interactive voice response line. So whole families were encouraged to watch or listen to the content together, and also learning from our process evaluation, constraints addressed in each topic or audio that was shared was made really explicit. So for example, lack of water or land. So we tested the feasibility and acceptability and equity of UPAVAN among mothers with a child 0 to 23 months using mixed research methods. So this included quantitative monthly phone surveys, which ran throughout the implementation period, and qualitative semi-structured interviews at the end to help us understand experiences of the intervention and also to understand preferences regarding intervention approach, so comparing UPAVAN to UPAVAN. So we found that our quantitative pre-specified targets related to feasibility and acceptability were reached. However, these were lower and not always reached among mothers who did not personally own their own phone, or mothers who didn't belong to a household owning a smartphone. We found that gendered social norms did not create major barriers to women accessing phones, and men did tend to support women's engagement with the intervention. However, digital gender inequality did arise when there was only one phone in the household, with men's phone usage prioritized over women, which ultimately affected their ability to participate. We found that the mobile platform engaged whole families and enabled family-level discussions around nutrition and agricultural practices. And women specifically highlighted that this was easier as their families saw the videos themselves. Women also highlighted that being able to watch the videos on demand as per their convenience was especially important to them. So when comparing UPAVAN to UPAVAN among women who participated in both programs, they really struggled to choose a preference of intervention approach. And rather, it was revealed that both approaches, the mobile and in person, had their own unique benefits. For example, it was highlighted that the longer video format with facilitated discussions, as in UPAVAN, were more conducive to learning. But UPAVAN augments learning through kind of like revision. We found that the group-based approaches were more inclusive and that ultimately women's group-based learning and PLA activities should be continued, but with complementary mobile components. So as such, we concluded that in-person group-based participatory approaches do remain essential for improving nutrition outcomes equitably, but mobile approaches provide important complementarity. Therefore, going forward, we recommend that investments should be made in developing and testing the efficacy of hybrid nutrition-sensitive agricultural interventions that have a strong focus on engaging whole families. So just to finalize, we would like to pay a special thanks to the following for their time, trust and support throughout the whole of the UPAVAN program. So all of the 148 cluster community members, particularly the women and children involved, UPAVAN and government frontline workers, data collection, field teams, and finally the local authorities. Thank you all.
Thank you, team. I think we made it on time. Few thanks. We do have 15 minutes, it looks like, for any Q&A. And Purnima, will you facilitate, or I don't know?
Yeah, sure. So there were a few, interesting questions that were answered already. But let me maybe ask a couple that, for which answers are being typed. So one question is, whether the group facilitators were part of the same village, and what you anticipate to be the potential effect or impact of that approach to implementation. And then the second question, and so that's from Prapti Barua. Prapti is at IFPRI. Another question is from Mahesh Katala, who's at CIMIT. How was the safety or use of agrochemicals addressed through the training and videos? So they're both implementation related questions. I guess I also want to encourage, if there are any participants who'd really like to ask a question live, please do raise your hands, and the organizers can unmute you to allow you to speak. But maybe you guys can comment on the community part of things.
Shivbaba, do you want to answer that? Are the group facilitators being a part of the village? But Helen, yeah, is he on?
Yeah, I think Helen has answered that, but if any of you want to come in.
We're fine on that. We're happy to take other questions that have been not answered yet or asked.
Yeah, actually, all those questions have been answered. So let me see if we see any hands up. Does anyone have their hands up? Rasmi, would you like to ask a question? I see that there's an unmute or microphone next to your hand. So I'm wondering if anyone unmuted you for that. No?
Should I stop sharing my screen?
Sure, maybe we'll be able to see everybody that way. Okay, good. So Mahesh has a question. Mahesh, why don't you come in?
Thank you, Purnima. My question is that this is a great work, but I would like to ask that after having these trainings and videos and this program, what level of impact that you have an impact study, that what level of impact that women and child and girls got on nutrition's quality, and then they really change their diet, or still because when we project close, then everything is gone, still there is a residual, or there is really impact on these marginalized movements, and particularly I'm looking more on those are like marginal farmers, like landless farmers and all as well, how they are using this model to be in their kitchen gardens or their homestead areas, and really how it's impacting their life for nutritional and healthy food.
So your question is really about what has happened after the trial, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously we haven't gone back and looked at the sustainability of these impacts. But I would ask Shivbabu or Ronali to come in terms of the lived experiences in these villages. Shivbabu, interacts with these communities all the time. But just want to say that various aspects of these kinds of videos and PLA are being scaled up across India through state livelihood missions and also health missions, especially the PLA. And the question is now really trying to see if there can be even more of an integrated approach. So what UPAVAN has done is added an impetus and a trial and also a methodology around which we can now scale up. Shivbaba, do you want to add to that on what is happening? Do you know if people are still continuing with these behaviors or not?
Yes, ma'am. The women group, they are promoting the agriculture process, new method till now.
Thank you.
They also promoted in their laboring villages and laboring relatives. It is continuous till that.
Great.
Sorry, again, Purnima, just follow-up questions that, okay, I know that is incorporated in government schemes and all, but it's still nice to see that what's really happening. That's more important. That's our efforts in making any kind of change in their nutritional diet or just showing videos and all. That's we want to look at that. That is very important.
Yeah, thank you, Mahesh. So I think, obviously the first set of results are available and published in Lancet Planetary Health, and that's what the team has presented here. I think, as Sunita, I'm going to interpret your questions more as the sustainability of some of these impacts. And I think what we are seeing and hearing here is that there's likely some anecdotal evidence. And maybe what we're asking is for the UPAVAN team to get some funding to do a follow-on study, right?
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, those are important. Actually, if PRI had done some of those follow-up studies on other interventions, and it'll be to learn what happens. But yes, it's a common problem that you do the trial.
We have a third round of data that just came out from the Angel trial in Bangladesh, which we're just beginning to analyze. So we'll see some stuff there. So there's a couple of other questions here that relate to structural and cultural barriers to, to adopting these interventions. So there's one question about a structural barrier, which is about land and homestead space, and there are, rural communities with those constraints. So, how do you engage them around these types of activities? And the second is a question on cultural barriers, and asking whether the team could comment on any sort of cultural barriers that were identified, particularly as impediments to improving child feeding practices. So if you guys could take those two, one is structural and one is cultural.
Helen, can you take the structural, and Suchitra, can you take the cultural?
Yes, sure. So with the structural, the issue about land, actually, almost no one has zero land due to government land titling schemes. And so really what we're talking about is, what do we do with those that have almost no land, very small plots of land? And there were specific practices that we were promoting for those, particularly around chickens and growing vegetables that you can do on small plots of land. We did find that participants were a little bit did find that land was a constraint for them and couldn't necessarily do everything that was promoted, and that some people thought, I'm not going to attend these meetings because I don't have enough land. And then we learned from that in the UPAVAN follow-up, where we actually advertised the videos as, what can you do if you don't have much land? So that people weren't sort of self-selecting out of videos that were actually designed for them to try and increase inclusivity and impacts for those that own little land.
So we could have advertised better and to use it, and I think that's what we learned in UPAVAN, and Shubhabu team has done, and Ronali have done a lot of innovation in that.
Those who are not, in the UPAVAN study, like after the UPAVAN intervention got over, like as Helen mentioned, specifically those landless farmers, so they basically prefer to do poultry, goatry, so those things we promoted them, and those are very, very encouraging. Like 1 year after we went and did studies, so we found they are practicing those things, and particularly the kind of knowledge and information they have on nutrition specific as well as nutrition sensitive agriculture, I mean, it's profound.
Suchitra, on the cultural barriers, what are the things that worked and what we need to work at still?
Like, during the intervention, the cultural barriers for child feeding practices that were actually difficult to some extent, it changed, but the feeling that till 1 year of age, no animal source protein were given, and when they started it did not depend on the age when to start the complementary feeding of the child. So when they introduced the complementary feeding, it was all watery, and this feeling till 1 year the varieties of food, though with rounds and rounds of discussions and home visits, follow-ups from the group members, it was able to change. But I think it still needs some more discussion and some more demonstration and giving examples is what I feel. It also, is same for the maternal food taboos with so little options available in the community, and this food restrictions during pregnancy and lactation is a huge cultural barrier, I think.
That said, we did overcome. Sorry, Helen, go ahead.
I was just going to add that one of the things, so yeah, there were some beliefs about you shouldn't eat certain foods, and some to do with spinach, for example. And then one of the things that we found was really helpful to overcoming this is that the messages and the content was really complementing existing government messages. So it was complementing what the government frontline workers were already saying. So they're saying, well, the UPAVAN is saying it, and also the Anganwadi is saying it. And so now we really can't, we really have to take it. And so I think that was really an enabling factor, the fact that these messages were very complementary to what the Anganwadi workers were saying as well.
I was going to take the Indian spinach example. In UPAVAN, we tried actually in the first set of meeting, we said, we're not going to work with work taboos. Let's not try and change them. Let's find ways of actually working around that. I think it was the field teams that said, no, let's promote spinach because it can be done with less land and less water and all of that. And in fact, in a way that ended up being our success story as well, which is quite strange because we have a lot of photos of various people growing Indian spinach, although it was a taboo. So, I mean, we stood corrected in terms of we can't change taboos. We can, if we kind of really think about these complementarities and reinforcements of messages, who is in the video, who, are they really credible sources of information, the storyboarding, all of that is what I like to think has actually changed those taboos. Another thing that's coming up, and that was towards the end of the trial, sadly, so we didn't have as much activity, is really about eating junk food, and mothers wanted more information around how around the topic of feeding children, not feeding children junk food, and more information around that. So that's coming up as a new concern as well, unsurprisingly to all of us. But at the same time, well, to be honest, I think maybe in PLA there was one meeting around which it was discussed, but after that we had to end the trial.
Yeah, great. Thank you all so much. So we're just a couple of minutes away from time, and so I'm going to just park all my questions because I know I have other opportunities to reach out to all of you. But I think this is for me just such an amazing trial, both in the conduct of the trial, but also in the kinds of insights that you've gained about triggering the different types of pathways, right, related to agriculture, and using the modalities of extension videos, shaping what's happening on homesteads. Okay, I think we're going to leave that question for the person to read the paper, because I think the answer to that question is in the paper in terms of the actual adoption of practices. What I think what would be, if it hasn't been done already, and we'd be more than happy to provide you with the platform for this, if there are insights from UPAVAN that touch sort of different policy areas for the government of India, or even other governments in South Asia, I think it would be really worthwhile to kind of outline, what are key issues there for agricultural extension to consider, what are some key issues for community engagement types of programs and efforts to consider, what are the kinds of costs that governments should consider investing in these relative to what's already being done, because in the end, the potential for impact really depends on the uptake by interested state governments, and we today have agriculture and nutrition linkages and nutri gardens and Poshan Vatikas and such things very prominently featured in the new version of Poshan Abhiyan for the government of India. But my sense is that it does require bringing evidence from sort of credible, evaluated experiences such as yours into those dialogues. You know, I would love to, I think at our end, be able to stay in touch with you all to see, you know, what can be offered through to the groups really supporting Poshan 2.0 and some of the efforts around Nutri-Gardens and other ag nutrition linkages work. So with that, we are really literally at time. So I want to thank the UPAVAN team so much for, you know, the way in which you brought this together. I think the seminar was just a great example of, you know, your teamwork behind the trials. We want to thank you for that, modeling that as well. To TAFSSA, please be in touch with us. And, you know, let's see what we can do to take forward and help you take forward some of the insights from your trial into the policy world as well. Yeah, thank you guys so much. And huge thank you to the TAFSSA team, to Mahjabeen and Isha in particular, who have helped to bring this webinar together. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all. A pleasure to
Thank
be
you.
here. Thank you, team.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Bye.